Imagine a place that held all the knowledge in the world. A single building containing the secrets of the universe, the histories of every nation, the greatest stories ever told. This wasn't a fantasy. It was the great library of Alexandria, the intellectual heart of the ancient world. But today, it's gone. Its story buried under centuries of myth and misinformation. What really happened to the most famous library in history? Let's uncover the forgotten truth. Our story begins not with a fire, but with a vision. Around 300 BC, Ptolemy I, a general who served under Alexander the Great, founded a new dynasty in Egypt. He wanted his capital, Alexandria, to be more than just a center of power. He wanted it to be the world's center of learning. So he established the Mausoleum, a temple to the Muses, which was essentially the first ever research university. And at its heart was the library. The ambition was staggering. The Ptolemies aimed to collect a copy of every single book in the known world. Agents were sent across the Mediterranean to buy scrolls. Ships docking in Alexandria's harbor were required to hand over any books they carried. Scribes would then copy them, keeping the original for the library and returning the copy to the owner. It's estimated that at its peak, the library held anywhere from 40,000 to 400,000 scrolls. Think about that. So as a world without printing presses, where every single word was written by hand. This wasn't just a dusty archive. It was a vibrant, buzzing hub of innovation. The greatest minds of the age flocked to Alexandria. It was here that Eratosthenes calculated the circumference of the earth with astonishing accuracy. It was here that Euclid wrote Elements, the foundational text of geometry for over 2,000 years. It was here that astronomers mapped the stars, physicians dissected human bodies to understand anatomy, and grammarians standardized the Greek language. The library wasn't just storing knowledge. It was actively creating it. They even invented the concept of alphabetical order and bibliographic catalogs, things we take for granted today. So, if it was so incredible, where did it all go? This is where the popular story comes in. A single, catastrophic fire that wiped it all out. The main suspect is usually Julius Caesar. In 48 BC, during his civil war, Caesar was besieged in Alexandria. He set fire to enemy ships in the harbor, and the story goes that the flames spread, consuming the library and all its treasures. It's a dramatic, tragic tale. But it's probably not true. While there was a fire during Caesar's campaign, ancient sources like Strabo, a geographer who worked in Alexandria just a few decades later, don't mention the library being destroyed. He describes the Mausoleum as being very much intact. It is more likely that the fire destroyed a warehouse near the docks, where scrolls were being stored, not the main library itself. The idea of Caesar as the book-burning villain was largely popularized by later Roman writers who had a political axe to grind. The library survived, but its golden age was coming to an end. The real destruction of the Library of Alexandria wasn't a single event, but a slow, painful decline over hundreds of years. It was death by 1,000 cuts. The first major blow came from within. The Ptolemaic dynasty began to weaken. Political instability and infighting led to budget cuts for the Mausoleum. Scholars were expelled, funding dried up, and the focus shifted from intellectual pursuit to political survival. A library can't thrive without support, and Alexandrius was slowly being starved. Then came the Romans. When Egypt became a Roman province in 30 BC, the city's status changed. It was no longer the capital of a wealthy kingdom, but just another part of a vast empire. Rome became the new center of the world, and intellectuals and resources started flowing there instead of to Alexandria. The library wasn't a priority for the new rulers. Religious conflict also played a huge role. As Christianity rose, it clashed with the pagan intellectual traditions that the library represented. In the late 4th century AD, a wave of anti-pagan sentiment swept the empire. In 391 AD, the Roman Emperor Theodosius issued a decree outlawing pagan practices. Under the direction of the Patriarch Theophilus of Alexandria, a mob of Christians destroyed a magnificent temple that housed a smaller, daughter library. While this wasn't the great library itself, it was a significant collection, and its destruction was a devastating blow to the city's intellectual life. It symbolized a shift in the cultura, move away from classical inquiry toward religious dogma. By the time the Arabs conquered Alexandria in 642, the great library was likely a shadow of its former self, if it existed at all. There's a famous but almost certainly fictional story about the Caliph, Omar, ordering the library's scrolls to be used as fuel for the city's bathhouses, claiming that if the books agreed with the Quran, they were redundant, and if they disagreed, they were heretical. It's a compelling anecdote, but it was written 500 years after the event and was likely propaganda. The truth is, by the 7th century, there probably wasn't much of a library left to burn. So, the real story of the Library of Alexandria is not one of a single, tragic fire. It's a more complex, and perhaps more cautionary, tale. It's a story of budget cuts, political neglect, brain drain, and cultural shifts. The knowledge wasn't lost in a blaze of glory. It just faded away. It disintegrated from apathy and underfunding. But here is the most important part of the forgotten story. The knowledge was unentirely lost, because the library's purpose wasn't just to hoard scrolls. It was to disseminate knowledge. For centuries, scholars had copied, translated, and studied its texts. These copies spread across the ancient world to Rome, to Constantinople, to the Middle East. When Western Europe plunged into the Dark Ages, it was the scholars in the Islamic world who preserved and built upon the knowledge from Alexandria. They translated the Greek texts of Aristotle, Euclid, and Ptolemy into Arabic, adding their own brilliant insights in mathematics, medicine, and astronomy. Later, during the Renaissance, these Arabic translations were brought back into Europe and translated into Latin, sparking a revolution in science and philosophy. So, in a way, the spirit of the Library of Alexandria never died. It's a ghost in our modern world. Its legacy lives on in our universities, our libraries, our scientific method, and in the very idea that knowledge should be collected, shared, and built upon. The building is gone, but the fire that ignited the fire of human curiosity continues to burn. The story of the library is a powerful reminder. It teaches us that knowledge is fragile and that a society is measured by how it values and protects its intellectual heritage. It also shows us that ideas are resilient. They can survive the fall of empires and the burning of buildings. The real library was never just the scrolls on the shelves. It was the community of minds dedicated to understanding the world. And that's a legacy that can never be truly destroyed. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey into the past interesting, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more forgotten histories. See you next time.